little bit more to one of the projects that you talked about, which is I think you said it was funded by the CDC, but correct me if I'm wrong, and it had to do with STD screening in the schools.
Yes.
In my experience, STD clinics in the past were tremendously sort of underutilized as a portal to, reaching high-risk individuals, people at high risk for HIV infection. And I would love to hear a little bit more about that program, if you could describe it to us, and maybe it's to some extent how widespread it is and what it's kind of doing for these kids.
Yeah, I'll be upfront, is that most of the data on that is actually kept by the other partners, because we just hold a very small piece of that. But I do know that those clinics, I think they're in 7 schools now, and we have joint flyers. Our Jasmine Clinic's on the flyer as well. I have heard that the clinics, even though they're accessible and at the schools, they're not on the campuses, but they're like at the full-service schools, which are right up the road or nearby. They are seeing young people, but they aren't always the young people that are probably the highest risk for STDs and HIV. Okay. So that is an area where I think there's still a lot of thought trying to figure out how do we get young people who are LGBT or MSM to access those resources while they're near their campuses. I would like, before I go on further and make more statements about that, I'd really like to see if we could get that data and pull it and look at it a little more closely. But that's sort of the impression that I was given from some of the conversations I had. Right. Well, I mean, I think it's our piece of the work is really that we do safe schools work. So we do work to support the creation of gay-straight alliances in schools and the maintenance of them, and bringing different leaders together from the different high schools and middle schools that have GSAs so that they can share resources and talk. And part of that piece is the health promotion piece, and to get them encouraged to use those resources. But a lot of them, they still feel more comfortable coming to like our clinic, even though it might be a drive. Right. So, yeah. Or a bus ride. An issue in part is, the degree to which people feel comfortable in those clinics, and versus sort of one that's clearly welcoming and perhaps is going to be fluent in their issues, as yours undoubtedly is. Okay, great. So, I mean, it sounds like some kind of early outreach efforts there. Are you seeing many of these individuals who you do consider to be at high risk starting to access PrEP, or is that not yet kind of in the mainstream? No, our PrEP program is, unfortunately, I mean, let me just put it this way. In Florida, the number of people participating in PrEP has been increasing every single month. I think the latest chart I saw, over 7,000 people are on PrEP in Florida through Department of Health programs, and that's who our partner is with our PrEP program. But we only have, at Jasmine, the capacity to support a little over 20 young people on PrEP. Okay. So for us, that's the challenge. So what we end up doing is we'll serve people on PrEP who have no ability to pay otherwise, and then those that have insurance or some other sort of capacity, we work with them to get them to some of the other providers that do PrEP, that will take their insurance or work with them based on their income or whatever. So we're only like being able to work with a smaller population than we can act. If we were actually able to serve everyone that came to us and wanted to be on PrEP, and that we screened for PrEP, that we thought needed PrEP, we would be serving a few hundred more people. And we just haven't been able to build our capacity fast enough to do that. And that's kind of frustrating, at least from my perspective, and I'm sure for some of our PrEP program staff as well. But that is certainly, and I should have said it earlier, that's one of the areas I'd love to see us be able to figure out how to continue to expand that, and get more young people, especially young African American, YMSM, gay, bi, et cetera, onto PrEP, because that also seems to, like the national picture, there seems to be a little bit of a disparity there, where the people that are taking advantage of PrEP are probably more white and more affluent.
Yeah, indeed. What level of provider do you have in your program? Are these, say, nurse practitioners, or is it?
Yeah, we have an ARNP who's provided to us by the health department, and she comes with an assistant. So that's all, and all the PrEP services are integrated into our clinic services. So when people come, they can get assessed for PrEP, and then they would be sent to our PrEP coordinator, who would coordinate to get all that done with the RMP. They can also get all their STD services, so screenings for gonorrhea, chlamydia, syphilis. We do all the various sites where the swabs can go and all that sort of good stuff. So and they can get an exam. We occasionally can even do pregnancy related things, but it's still pretty limited. All under the law, what we're able to do, we can't do too much beyond that with young people under the age of 18, just the STD stuff. And
because they can't consent, other types of.
Yeah, that's the issue. There are certain services that young people unfortunately can't consent to, and PrEP is still one of those things that we can't get young people under 18 on PrEP either. I mean, that's just hasn't gone through. I mean, that's something that's in discussion. I know there's people in the health department and other places that have been trying to figure out how that might work, but it's not really an option.
Okay, thanks.
I wondered if you could say a little bit more about your efforts. Obviously, it'll ultimately relate to PrEP as well as treatment, but you talked about some of the wraparound adherence work you do to try and keep people on ARVs. I wonder if you could say a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I mean, when we put someone in our medical with a medical case manager, they really, really work with that young person to get them whatever it is that we think they will benefit from, what the young person really needs to get them to a point where they're stable and able to work on meds. So we always, at a minimum, are going to take them to their first doctor's appointment, their first labs, their second doctor's appointment, usually in their second set of labs, so that we have some continuity there. We'll continue working with them even past that, and in terms of like the direct medical stuff, until they get comfortable enough with going to that provider on their own. For some young people, that may be immediately after the first few visits. Others, it may take longer to build that rapport and trust and get them into the provider. While we're seeing them, they additionally get things like medication adherence training, like our heart and so on. We address all sorts of needs that they may have. Work on them with the sort of individual treatment plan goals, if you will. So that could be all sorts of things. It could be helping them with housing. It could be getting them into a substance abuse treatment. It could be helping find them mental health resources. It's coordinating with their Ryan White case manager. It's getting them supplies. We have a food pantry program, hygiene products, all sorts of stuff like that. helping them access resources to jobs. We have programs on our campus that we don't run all the time, but